Episode 149 of the Actors Room highlights Robert Redford. When I studied acting back in 1997 in New York City, I went to a school called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, a beautiful school. And one of their most famous alumni, they promoted to recruit young acting hopefuls, was Robert Redford. He was the biggest picture, the biggest face you saw on their promotional videos and posters. So when I think of Mr. Redford, I always place him in high regard, very respected. And for me, that always stuck in my memory. How amazing he was. It'll be an honor highlighting Charles Robert Redford Jr. and those close to him called him Bob. And I might do that in my show. Bob Redford passed at the age of 89, leaving behind a legacy filled with films that can be watched, enjoyed, studied, appreciated. He was a proud man, very intelligent, loved the wilderness, an environmentalist, a thrill seeker, and he was a modest, deep soul. Join me as we honor Robert Redford in the Actors Room, episode 149. They don't make him like Bob anymore. No, they don't. Here we go.
To me, one of the most exciting things to hear when I was little was "Once Upon a Time." When I heard that, I thought, now I'm in good hands. No. Once upon a time, what? And so when my kids were born, because I grew up in a lower working class family, we didn't have much. My dad was a milkman, and we had to live on very little, but we had story. So every night when I'd go to bed, because I was a restless kid, I was always wanting to climb out the window and go somewhere else. So to settle me down, they'd tell me a story. And that settled me down. And I couldn't wait for going to bed, because I didn't like the idea of going to sleep. I thought I'm going to be wasting time if I sleep, So the thing that calmed me down was I couldn't wait to be told this story. So my dad, who loved storytelling, would sit down on the bed, and I'd wait, and he'd say, okay, once upon a time there was I'm in business.
And there's Robert Redford talking about his dad, telling him stories at night. Let's get into his family before we get into his work. We do that in the Actors Room. We find out who they were as kids, where they grew up. Robert grew up in southern Los Angeles, a poor part of town. And Robert remarks about his childhood in good and bad ways. Good was his parents were loving, supportive, his father realistic, his mother more dreamy. His dad wanted him to get a normal job. And the mom kept Robert's hopes alive with hopes of the future in art. And I think people just don't realize how much Robert Redford saw. Being that he passed at the age of 89, he was actually aware and alive during World War II. Now, mind you, he was pretty small, I think around 9 or 10. But he remembered what his community went through during the war. And he remembered his neighborhood very supportive, and they would sort of bond with one another in this time of war. And when the war ended, he noticed a division within the community. This worried him. Also, he wasn't really turned on, even as a child, of the normal way of living. Husband, wife, kids, couple of cars maybe. Just a normal life didn't interest him. Plus, he wasn't very impressed with Los Angeles, being in the middle of that. Always nice and sunny, 70-degree weather. Boring. He yearned to grow outside of Los Angeles. And it always sort of stuck out for him. He couldn't wait to break free. He struggled in school because he didn't like to be told what to read and when to read it. He wanted to do things on his time. And at one point in his young life, he acquired what he says is a slight case of polio, which at the time was very concerning. And when he beat it, his mother was so happy, so excited, so relieved that as a reward for getting through that struggle, she took Robert to Yosemite National Park. And he felt that was the greatest thing in the world, seeing Yosemite and how beautiful it was. And it never left him. The image, the feeling that the wilderness, the mountains, the park system, just nature, stuck with him. And it will stick with him for the rest of his life. He loved nature. His parents would also take Robert and his brother to the movies on Saturday. That was a treat. And then they would also drop him off at the library for all day, sort of treating the library like a daycare center. So he would spend lots of time reading. And back then, TV was not even coming up really. He was born in 36. Is that right? 36. So he grew up in the 40s. Televisions really weren't a landmark in the house until the 50s. Now, mind you, I think there were television sets in the 40s, but not many. So they had the radio, and they had the newspaper, and they had books. And there's another thing about Robert Redford. He loved the newspaper. He loved the news, journalism. He felt that most Americans were being cheated if they didn't know what was going on in the world. At 15 years old, the family moves to Van Nuys, still in California. It was there he went to high school, very athletic. He played tennis, baseball, football at high levels. He was very athletic, talented in that way. He also shared the hallways with two famous people, Don Drysdale, pitcher in the major leagues, and Natalie Wood also went to the same high school that Robert Redford went to. I think Robert was a senior when she was a sophomore. And they did cross paths in high school, not often. And there's a story that Robert Redford was a hall monitor and wouldn't let Natalie Wood in the school or something because she was at the wrong door. He gave her a hard time. And after that, someone said, "You realize who you were talking to." That was Natalie Wood. And he said, "Okay, I didn't know that." So he was aware of who Natalie was at the time after that incident, but not the other way around. Natalie didn't recognize Robert Redford until later on. And it's an interesting story we'll get into. Those two became very close after that. And so we will move on talking about the young life of Mr. Robert Redford, whose real name is Charles Robert Redford Jr. Mr. Redford got bad grades because he said, "I had bad teachers." And I agree. I think that sometimes it's not recognized enough. The teachers need to be inspirational. And Bob didn't feel that his teachers were that. He said simply, "I didn't feel inspired." So he read a lot on his own. He rebelled as a teen, big time. He got in trouble a lot with his brother. They did pranks. They would break and enter. They had it in their minds, the brother and Robert, that they were going to be stuntmen. And when they brought an idea to Paramount, yeah, that's right, Paramount Studio, they brought this idea that him and his brother were marksmen as stuntmen. They did a routine, they flipped each other around. Paramount, not impressed, said, we'll let you know. Well, Robert and his brother were slighted by this. So they decided to break and enter into Paramount studio. True story. Robert said it. I heard him say it in an interview. They broke into Paramount studio and did damage. They actually fucked up a few rooms, destroying things. And Robert said that he had spent a few nights, just a few nights, in jail, not prison. He said they were just one-nighters. Robert said he had an outlaw personality, always living on the edge. And I think that was his thrill-seeking. He was looking for inspiration, that rush. I would shy away from stuff like that scared me, where other people seek it out, that thrill, that high. He was looking for that high. He said, I didn't want to break the rules. I just didn't want to be held back by them. He also loved to climb. He loved the mountains, and he would actually climb buildings, office buildings. Can you believe that? He was definitely a thrill seeker if you're climbing buildings. After high school, he ended up going to college. He went to the University of Colorado, and during his first year, his mom passes. Now, this was a landmark moment for Bob because of all the people he felt supported his wildness was his mom. And when she passed, I think at the age of 39, Bob said, very young, he felt, what am I doing here? It sort of opened his door in his mind and heart to just do whatever he felt like doing. And that's exactly what he did. He really didn't care about his studies anymore. He was on the college baseball team. Didn't give a shit about that either. What did he do? He drank, and he drank a lot. He partied, and he partied hard. So hard. He got kicked out of college because of it. So being kicked out of college, he's free, right? What does he decide to do? He wants to live in Europe. He takes a freighter out to Europe, living in France, Spain, and Italy in his late teens and early 20s, all on his own. He was simply a drifter, a hitchhiker. Back in the day, I guess you could do these things, but I can't imagine it. Some young man out there, all alone, finding himself. He said he wasn't extremely poor, but just poor enough to keep going in that direction, where you're searching. He actually did study art in Europe. Gotta understand this too. Redford didn't act as a kid, an actor. He wasn't in the school plays. He didn't have ambition to be an actor. And he even remembers when he would go as a kid to the cinema and how he would make fun of films being silly, thinking actors and that way of life is just a joke. It's not real life. But art, as far as drawing was concerned, was something that Robert looked forward to doing every day. And he studied in Europe to be an artist. But something really significant happened to Bob during his journey in Europe that changed his life. One of his teachers, one of his mentors, critiqued Bob's art in a negative way. He actually told Bob, I expected a little bit more out of you with this. This crushed him completely, derailing his vision for where his life and career was going to go, and felt damaged in his artful ambitions. So he ultimately decided that Europe, that experience, was over, and he needed to go back to America. Decided the best course of action, New York City. That's where the action is, and he knew that the culture and the diversity, and the weather, sometimes shitty, sometimes not, a lot of rain for sure. But he looked forward to going to New York City. And Bob said during this time, he was most definitely living on the edge. He said that there were breaking points where he was worried that he may push it too far. And he would lose it mentally. And when I heard that, I did not know that. When I do research on these wonderful artists, these great actors, so on, there's a lot of things I don't know until I do research and find out who they really are, what they went through. And Bob Redford went through some very serious moments in his life when he moved back to America, didn't know what he was going to do with his life. He was on the edge. He even said so. That worried him. He needed guidance, hope, something. And talking to a friend, they encouraged him, or plainly giving him advice, that he should look into the theater. It's art related, and maybe find out what it's like to build sets, help out in a production, be a stage manager, use your art in scenery, costume, makeup, all that stuff might interest you. Get your juices flowing. Why not? Give it a try. Bob felt that might be a good idea. Where do I start? Where do I go? And the friend gave a suggestion of maybe go study first. There are schools out there. Find one. And New York City did have a lot of conservatories. You could go just to learn about theater. Just to learn to do ballet. Right? And that's what he did. He went and he got a newspaper. Opened it up and looked and saw what was available. And he said the biggest ad was a place called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. The school I referenced at the beginning of my show. He went there, he auditioned, he got in. At first, he didn't like it there because, well, they had acting classes. This scared the living shit out of Bob. He didn't want to act. He wanted to learn what other aspects of theater was all about, and the Academy did provide that. Makeup, directing, writing, so on. Not just acting. Acting is a part of the Academy, but it's not everything. But being a student at that school requires you to take acting classes. He sat in a corner and tried to hide away. He called himself the shyest kid in the room, hoping and praying to God they never made him get up to do a scene. But at one point, they did. And he needed to have a partner. He said, I was paired up with the other misfit in the room, and they gave us a scene. We worked on it, and it just felt bad. The misfit, my partner, didn't know what he was doing. It was awkward. It didn't feel good. And when we got up to do the scene in front of the whole class, Bob Redford was petrified, frustrated that his scene partner was doing everything technically right. Not living in the moment, not listening to Bob when he had his lines. His scene partner would just say their lines, wait until Bob was done, and then do his lines again. Bob felt this to be mind-blowing. How dare he do this to him? Didn't feel right. Bob's so frustrated with his scene partner during the scene. He yelled, screamed. I think he said he even slapped the scene partner, picked him up and threw him across the stage. True story. Bob Redford age of 21 at the time, struggling as an artist, picking up scene partners, throwing them across the room because his scene partner wasn't listening to him. And I always felt, watching Mr. Redford act through my lifetime, I've seen most of his films many times, studying his art. And there was always that one aspect of Bob Redford that I respected the most out of any actor I've ever seen in my life, even Marlon Brando. Mr. Redford was the greatest listener in modern screen history. You could see it. He actually listens, and he does it beautifully. And it spawned from one of his first days at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, New York City, 1958-59. And the best part of that story, and it was a long story, but this will come out of it, this. His teacher praised him for that. Bob felt, it's over. This conservatory, not for me, obviously, I'm abusive. They're not going to like that. But they did, and that's another thing that I have said on this show in the past. Acting school, all these art schools are so different from any other school on the planet. They encourage you to be yourself, whether it's good or bad. If they see you in your joy or frustration, anger, sadness, joy, tears, laughter, violence, it's okay. That's your art. And your truthfulness. Truth. Bob showed truth on the stage. Realism. He understood it. He got it. He was comfortable on the stage. Not everybody is. And I struggle when I hear very brilliant, very talented people, artists, actors say anybody can be an actor. I disagree. Not everybody can be an actor. I think everybody can be a good liar, maybe. But I've seen people that are horrible liars. Not everybody can be a good liar. To be an actor, you got to be not only a great liar, but know your truth and feel comfortable on the stage or on set. Bob Redford, he did it. So the teacher told him, I know you're frustrated and you're on the verge of leaving this school. I can feel it. But don't. Please stay. You have a teacher begging a student to stay, telling him, you are on the right path. Your partner, no. You, yes, you get it. You got it. There's fire in you. There's something there, that spark. And you're comfortable up on that stage. You cared. That's important. Please stay. Learn and grow with us at the Academy and see where it takes you. Bob said, why not? What else am I doing? And he grew comfortable in time being an actor. I think he slowly realized in his journey as an actor that he was pretty fucking good at it, and he had stage presence. He was very intelligent. It helps being an actor, having that intelligence. Studying a script, understanding it. There's a difference between understanding behavior, text, and all this stuff that goes with being an actor. I get it. And it helps to be smart. The smartest actors out there are probably the most brilliant ones just because they have that sharp mind. And they see things others may not, especially within the text. Bob had all of it in spades. Plus, we don't want to forget this, folks. He was extremely good looking. Not you're just okay. They called him the American boy and all that stuff. Your classic American looking boy with his dashingly, handsomely good looks. And he had that. He never thought that. I think Robert Redford knew he was good looking. He just was very modest. He didn't let it get to his head. He never felt that to be who he was. He knew he was attractive and he used it in his roles, for sure. No doubt about it. But he didn't want to be known as that. So he had that going for him too. It helps to be attractive. Oh, there's no doubt about it. It helps you get women. It helps you get roles. It's favorable. Let's just put it that way. When someone like a Robert Redford walks into a room, everybody takes notice. It just happens that way. So that doesn't hurt. So before I get into his career, which is fascinating, I want to go ahead and lightly touch upon a very important part of my show where I like to go from where they finish school to when they start getting roles. And where's the connection? Did they know people? Did they go to the right audition? Did they meet the right people? All that stuff. I want to know that connection. And finding out that Bob went to high school with Natalie Wood, interesting. And then he went to the American Academy. And within that conservatory at that time, there were famous people all around the Academy. One of them, John Cassavetes, actually. And that helps. And I just figured that was the case with Redford. But I don't think so. Bob was getting work on his own. And then the connections that he would get in the future, when he started getting other, more popular roles, just sort of happened that way. For example, he did work with Jason Robards, who also went to the Academy. And then, of course, he'll be working with Natalie Wood, that he went to high school with. But I don't think any of those connections really mattered until he got a very big role on Broadway. So, my conclusion is, Bob got successful on his own, purely on his audition skills, his looks, his talent, and his drive. So, just wanted to get that out of the way as we dive into the career of Robert Redford. He said he found himself very fortunate to get consistent work off the bat. And he did. After he left the Academy, he got small roles in theater, off-Broadway stuff. And he also got roles at the very late stages of television work / stage work, where they turned plays into short television shows, and they were very popular at that time. And Bob was on the tail end of that in the late 50s, early 60s. So he had a little bit of that. It kept the actors working. It was very valuable to get those jobs. And Bob was getting those jobs, working a lot. There weren't many breaks with Redford in the beginning of his career. He said he was so lucky to be able to keep working because it took him 5 years to decide to actually be an actor. It was almost like he was testing out being an actor. He wasn't completely dedicated for it to be his job for the rest of his life. During those 5 years, he kept at it, worked hard, but didn't commit completely to it in the future. It took 5 years for him to realize, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this. He was getting to the point where he was studying character, understanding the text so well that, hey, I might as well do this forever until something else comes along. 5 years, folks. He would also perform at the Armstrong Circle Theater, and his Broadway debut was Tall Story in 1959 with John Astin. More Broadway in The Highest Tree than Little Moon of Alban, and he also did a play on Broadway called Sunday in New York with Sandra Lee, someone that knew Marlon Brando very well. Now here comes a big moment. Robert Redford gets a starring role on Broadway. Natalie Wood sees him in the play. Impressed with this actor, decided to meet him backstage after the show. Bob was flattered that Natalie Wood made her presence known to him and brought up the fact they went to high school together. She didn't remember him, was embarrassed, but what a cute moment. And she liked Bob very much and kept him in mind to do future projects, and they would act together for sure. But his biggest, most successful play he did on Broadway was, without a doubt, Barefoot in the Park, a Neil Simon play. I love Neil Simon so much. I love almost every single play Neil Simon has ever done. The Odd Couple, of course, is the best one. And Neil Simon also wrote screenplays, and I love them all too. Robert Redford was perfect to play Paul in Barefoot in the Park, and would end up doing a film version with Jane Fonda later on. But this cemented his star status within the Broadway community. And it was after that he started getting offers for bigger movie opportunities. His film debut was Tall Story, reprisal of Broadway, I think an off-Broadway production he did, which I found interesting. In 1960, he did a movie with Jason Robards called The Iceman Cometh. Jason was also very impressed with Robert Redford, and they became close friends. And I think that because they went to the academy together, that helped. Now, mind you, I take that back. They didn't go at the same time. Jason Robards was much older than Robert Redford. Jason Robards probably went to the academy in the 30s, I want to say. The academy has been around for a long time. I think Marlon Brando's sister went there. Jocelyn. There are a lot of actors went through the academy. Not so much anymore. But back in the day, woo! Kirk Douglas, I mean, all the legends. A lot of legends went to the academy. And it dropped off, I think. It did. When I went there, they didn't have they didn't have this central understanding of common acting technique. It's all over the place. But I think back in the day when Redford went there, and I think they had a better understanding in a better community. I think you could stay at the academy for as long as you wanted. Where now it's just a 2-year program, and sometimes just a 1-year program. If you don't get asked back, it's just 1 year and you're out. So it was just different times back then. And I think I find it interesting how long Redford has been around. Think about it. He was alive when Elvis was coming up. And he went to school in the 50s at the academy. How cool is that? Redford was walking around New York City in the 50s and early 60s. What a time. And he's seen so much, experienced so much, and was able to talk about it with people who wanted to listen. There are people, actors that I found out about who worked with Redford. Redford would take them out to dinner, right? Pay for it. They'd sit down and Robert would say, "What do you want to know?" Can you imagine how lucky some of these actors are to sit across from Robert Redford and just have a conversation about the business, about life, the environment, whatever you want to talk about? I'm sure Bob was game to just have an honest conversation about whatever you want to talk about. And Bob loved to go back and forth with dialogue, and that's another thing. He was so smart. It was an intelligent conversation you can have with Bob Redford. Okay, let's get into the films. Inside Daisy Clover, 1965, with Natalie Wood. He wins a Golden Globe for Best New Star. Didn't know that category existed back in 1965, but in 1965, they had a Golden Globe for Best New Star. Robert Redford won it. He was in The Chase with Jane Fonda and Marlon Brando. Then came Barefoot in the Park, the film version with Jane Fonda. What do I think about Mr. Redford's performance in Barefoot? It's refreshing. It's calm. So calm and natural. And he's so comfortable in front of the camera. And I'm going to play a clip that Sidney Pollack gave about Robert Redford and how natural he is, how calm he is in front of the camera. And I might as well play that clip now since I brought it up. This is Sidney Pollack talking about Robert Redford. And here we go.
what is Redford's appeal? I think a part of his appeal is, well, you sense enormous intelligence from him, and you also are curious to get the little bit that's being held back. You know, if you want to take let's say two very, very good, gifted actors who work in completely opposite ways, you would say Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. Mm-hmm. If Hoffman has $10, he'll spend $10. If Redford has $10, he'll spend $6, and then you keep wanting to get the other $4 some way. And if Redford was a painter, he would be a minimalist like Fragonard. He has a better understanding of how to work on camera than almost any actor I've ever worked with in my life. Huh. He's completely at ease.
Yeah.
Totally, he could not be less tense or nervous. It's not possible for him to be nervous when the camera's on him. So he just follows every impulse he has.
Wow.
But it's small. Mm-hmm. It's small little strokes of work. It's thinking, and you just see what's going on because you work. He's not an actor that you want to stay far away from with a camera. Mm-hmm. You don't read him that well, like you might with Dustin. Redford is a close-up actor. Mm-hmm. He probably did that deliberately. It sort of forces you to get in tight. Because that's, he works very internally, but so, the truth is the camera is a great big lie detector. It's a big microscope is what it is. And if you are relaxed, and that's the key to it, and you think a thought, the camera will see you thinking. It really will. You can't not see a person thinking if they're relaxed. If they're not relaxed, you won't see it. But if they are, you'll see everything. Uh-huh. It's a sort of amazing lie detector. It really is. Much more so than on the stage.
I think the most noteworthy comment that Pollock gave there was his calmness. No stress. Comfortable. Not all actors, people, can be that comfortable on the stage or on set. And that's a gift. A gift that allows you, like Pollock said, to experience so much more than someone all tensed up. It means something. I remember going through all of that stuff in school. They taught us how to relax. I'm like, why? Why am I going to class? We would lay there for an hour, relaxing, with music playing. And as I'm laying there, I'm going, I could be on stage right now, learning lines, going through moments. Why am I laying here, listening to some music, relaxing my muscles? I didn't understand it back then, but I understand it now. They were all doing that for a reason. You have to, all you actors out there, hopeful actors, if you're listening, it makes sense. You can't bottle up stuff and hold things in. To be an artist, a true one, you gotta let it go. Your instrument has to be able to take in stuff. Robert Redford was able to do that very easily. And that's a big deal if Sidney Pollock is saying that. They did several projects together. And we're going to get into one of those projects in a bit. But after Barefoot in the Park, a film that was successful, and he does a movie with Marlon Brando. He doesn't quite know if he wants to continue on. Are you kidding me? And I'm thinking about this. He's a successful actor at this point, making good money, really good money. And I'm not getting into a lot of Robert's personal stuff. He's married at the time. He's got kids, and he decides to semi-retire because he doesn't know if this acting thing is fulfilling him artfully enough. What? Robert Redford had high goals, or he just was hard to please in that way. So he goes and he lives in Greece for a year with his family to unwind or simply get away. And this I also understand. Maybe the Hollywood scene itself was getting to Bob Redford. And that I get. He was becoming an idol, and he didn't like that. He was surprised that women were losing their minds over him. He didn't understand it. He said he accepted it at one point for a bit, and that disturbed him, so he went back to not understanding it. So that could be the biggest reason why he got away from it. It bothered him that it would change him as a person in the wrong way. And he had to maybe take that year and regroup, get his feet on the ground in a good way, separating himself mentally from the Hollywood bullshit that could ruin you completely. And Bob had to come back because he had contract issues. He had to do a few more projects, plus I'm sure the money was pretty good. And his year break was over. And the next biggest film he did, when he came back, was pretty good. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. He wasn't originally cast. They didn't really want him. Not a big enough name opposite Paul Newman, who was already a big star. So big that the original title of this movie was The Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy. And when they finally cast Redford, Paul Newman's character was now more important. So, the new title was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is my mom's, I would say one of my mom's favorite films, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. She really liked Paul Newman and Robert Redford together. I get that. They worked well together. And we talked yesterday about the passing of Robert Redford and how sad we were, reminiscing about his characters that he played. And she's like, I didn't realize he was that old. And I said, Ma, he's been around for a while. We just reminisced about that movie. And when they were going to jump into the water and Robert Redford's character of Sundance explains he doesn't know how to swim. And just great moments between him and Newman. And the film worked, and both Paul and Robert became very close. They became very good friends. They did pranks with one another and just goofed around a lot. Great chemistry. And they both enjoyed making this movie. And I think both of them said this was their favorite movie they ever did. They worked differently as actors. Newman wanted to rehearse. Bob didn't. Bob would show up late on set a lot. And Paul Newman joked, kidded, saying, we should call this film, quote, Waiting for Lefty, end quote. I guess Bob was left-handed. But Bob and Paul did love one another. And there's a story where Newman was well known as a big fan of NASCAR racing in general, loving cars. So Bob played a joke on him, bought him a piece of shit car, and had it delivered to Newman's house. And Newman never said anything back to Bob about this little prank that he had a piece of shit car delivered to his house. So a couple of months later, Bob got a little gift. I guess it was the car had been melted down into some, like a block of metal. And had it delivered to Bob's house. And Bob never made reference to it at all to Newman. So was it this playful thing that they had going on with one another seemed to never end. And they played around a lot, had a lot of fun with one another. And that's what friends do. It was shortly after Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid that Robert Redford created a production company. He called it, was it Wildwood Films? Yep. And then something that came along after that that was even more important was his creation of the Sundance Institute in 1980. The board of trustees included Sidney Pollack and Carl Malden. It was set up to help young filmmakers, artists, deliver their craft, study. He created a little acting school in Utah. Bob had purchased a little bit of land in Utah to get away from it all. He loved nature. He wanted to be a part of that. And he really fell in love with Utah. In Provo. And he created an institute where young artists can go and learn how to be directors, writers, and acting school, basically. And he said that he wanted to have little buildings. And he said that the reason why he made them little is because it's better to have big ideas in a little building to have little ideas and hopes in a big building. And he really did appreciate young, hopeful artists doing creative, edgy work, not towing the line to top-notch production companies. He respected the artist in keeping it real. These are true artists. We lost a great man not that long ago. And him creating Sundance, and ultimately the Sundance Film Festival, is historic. It opened the door for artists to put their productions and have them recognized. So important. And you know how I feel about independent films. I think that I find it to be almost mandatory for them to exist because they're raw and real, and there should be no boundaries in art in that sense, where you have donors and production companies cutting scenes, telling you what you should do. Bob Redford felt that an artist should have a place where they can go, another place they can go. God bless them. Sundance Film Institute and the Sundance Film Festival are great things. And Robert Redford dedicated a lot of his time and effort and sacrificing his career. Although he didn't mind it, I'm sure, he felt the Institute was more important than him doing some film. And I love that. Good for you. A notable film called Downhill Racer. Saw it for the first time last week. I liked it. Independent feel to it. He wanted to make 3 films in 3 different arenas. The first one, he wanted to do a film athletically, Downhill Racer, skiing, that pertained to winning. First one, athletic. Second one would be political. And the third one, business. He got 2 out of 3 done. This one, Downhill Racer, which was good. You have Gene Hackman in there. A young Dabney Coleman makes an appearance. I recommend it. If you haven't seen Downhill Racer, it's available. You can see it on Tubi, I think. Then he did The Candidate. Yes, another great film. That was the political one. And he didn't get to do the third one, a business-related theme of winning. But that was important to him. And I'm surprised that he didn't find a way to get that third movie done. But he does a movie I absolutely adore. And I'm not outside guy, wilderness guy. I'm not that guy. But I appreciate films like Jeremiah Johnson. You have no idea. Is it because I can't see myself in that atmosphere? And it fascinates me, living off the land. This was a film that had never been done before, I guess. And it was great. Directed by Sidney Pollack. And they had met way back. They did a movie together. Sidney Pollack as an actor alongside Robert Redford in a film called War Hunt. I saw it. Wow, not that good, but interesting to see a young Pollack, a young Redford, I think John Saxon was in there. And yeah, even Redford sort of like, I don't even consider that a movie. It was very all over the place. But Pollock and Redford met on that movie back in 1962. And of course, throughout time, they kept in touch. And Pollock directs Jeremiah Johnson. Bob brought the project to him, said, we can do it. The studios are going to let us do it for $4 million. Why not? They did it in Utah. And Bob remarked it was a hard movie to shoot, but it was all worth it being outside, experiencing that. It's all about the details, Bob said. Details, they could tell the story. And it's also the silent moments in that film. It took 3.5 years for that film to be released. The studios, although they liked the film, they told Bob that. They said, Bob, this is a good film, but nobody's going to see this thing. Nobody's going to care. And it's good, but not yet. They held on to that film for 3.5 years. I think it's one of Bob's best. If you've never seen Jeremiah Johnson, please see it. Next up, The Way We Were, another Sidney Pollack directing film, alongside Barbra Streisand. And the original script, Bob didn't like because he felt his character wasn't deep enough. He said, make it deeper, I'll do it. And they did. This is a good film. And Barbra Streisand. Folks, I'm keeping that one in. Okay. Voice is going a little bit. The Actors Room sometimes does this on their show. It's part of my show. I got coffee here today. I'm recording on a Sunday morning. I hardly ever have recorded a show on a Sunday morning. I'm breaking ground today. I was going to do it yesterday. Didn't have time. I have time right now before the Cleveland Browns play later on at 1 o'clock. And I am taking a couple hours to do my show. And I have coffee. It's working. Yeah. Oh, God, I love coffee, don't you? I just put a little bit of cream and sugar now because my glucose levels are too high. And you get your blood work done, you're like, oh, fuck. My glucose is too high, man. I gotta cut back on the sugar. And I have all the things that I love. I mean, I love taking a drink. And of course, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I will every now and then if I hang out with the guys. Or if I'm with my brother who still smokes and we're having a few drinks, I'll have a cigarette or two with him. But I'm, for the most part, but sugar. Oh my God. So I had to take a moment here, help out the vocal cords. Take a little moment. That's part of my show. I make a decision sometimes that why not keep it real and light? Because that's what I'm sort of portraying in my show. Moment to moment, being real. Well, this is me. This is my show. It's not all talk. Well, it is all talk. But I'm a real person. I have, I'm not perfect, of course. I am definitely not perfect. And I mess up on my show. And I couldn't say Barbra Streisand. Barbara. She is really good in this movie. She is very talented. And I guess she had was that The Way We Were? Yes. She had a bit of a crush on Bob. Wow, what a surprise. I'm sure a lot of Bob's co-stars fancied him. But Barbara, I guess, really did have a crush on Bob. He used it in his character. To his advantage, anyway. And good actors do that. They may find a weakness in their scene partner, and they exploit it. It works in the film. If it pertains to the character, it makes the film grow. Why not? Bob's smart in that way. Not only intellectually in the text, but moment-to-moment behavior acting. And this movie worked. It's interesting to watch Redford in this role. He's far from perfect, but that's what he wanted. He didn't like these boring, what he said, I think at one point, in the beginning of shooting or the script process. I said, this character, it's boring, it's one-dimensional. What is my job? Just to stand there and look handsome? Because no, ain't happening. There's no way. Change it. They did, and you get the way we were. This is an iconic film. A lot of people know the song. They know the film. And I think a lot of people fell in love with Robert Redford even more after this one. His next film, I think, is probably one of his best, if not the best. I think a lot of people would say The Sting, 1973. His first Oscar-nominated performance. Only for Best Actor, by the way. He never won Best Actor. It was #1 box office film of the year. Bob doesn't watch his films. I wanted to point that out because in 2004, he was sort of given a job by his wife to go out with his grandchild and get a movie, an old movie, she said. Bob, why don't you take little Johnny here, go out to the store, go get a movie, an old movie. So he did. He went out, he said, there's the recent movie section and there was the old movie section. And him and his grandson went over to the old movie section and saw The Sting. And Bob's like, oh, that's interesting. He goes, he never seen it. What? I can't process this in my mind. I can't process it. Bob, you did a very good movie back in 1973. People love it. It's pretty fucking good. He never saw it. And here he is in 2004 with his grandson browsing film. His film's right, it's staring at him. He goes, oh my God, why not? And he tells his grandson, how about this one? And the grandson's looking, I mean, he sees his grandpa on the cover. And goes, okay, have you seen this, Grandpa? And he's like, no, I haven't seen it yet. And he's like, have you seen it? And the grandson's like, no. And then Bob's like, well, your mom never played this for you? So wouldn't you know it, they end up getting the movie and they take it home. They all watched it together. And that was the first time he ever saw the movie. How weird is that? And is that weird? Do you think it's weird? I've seen the movie like 15 times. And you have Robert Redford. And that was the first time he sat down with his family. That was the first time he saw it. In his response, when the movie was over, he looked over at his family and he goes, it's a pretty good movie. It blows my mind. And the reason why he doesn't watch his films, the main reason, he can't stand watching himself. Some artists are like this. It drives them nuts to watch themselves. Because I think they see all the things they did wrong, or simply they just find it strange to watch themselves. Robert Redford said that when a project was done, he let it go. And he moved on. These are just, I can't identify with that. Because I'm under the impression that watching yourself is valuable. And I'm going to say why. You see your faults, yes, and you build on them. I think it's valuable to watch yourself. Others don't. And Bob, in that way, it was fine because he was phenomenal. He didn't need to watch himself. He was that good. You know, someone like me, I would have to watch myself and, break it down, be like, oh my God, that was horrible, and I could do that much better. Bob, he's all right. He's going to be just fine. He doesn't need to watch himself. I love that story, though. Okay, anything else about The Sting? Think about how he made it. The chemistry between Newman and Redford, undeniable. Crowds would form. I love this. Crowds would form when shooting on locations would occur, which means there would be just lines and lines of women just to get a glimpse of Redford and Newman. They were like rock stars. I wonder what that's like. Because Bob really didn't care for it. I don't know if Newman did. Maybe. But they were like rock stars, these two. Women lining up just to get a look at them. Think about that. I want to lightly touch upon The Great Gatsby. There are a lot of people, critics, audiences alike, that don't think it's great. And I'm not saying it's great. I like it. And I appreciate Robert Redford's performance. Mia Farrow. Okay? Although their chemistry, it wasn't the best, I found their characters were... But, okay, their portrayal of their characters were transcendent, which means to me, their characters are almost above the text. That's the way I feel Scott Fitzgerald meant it to be. Okay, the novel in itself, if that's not your thing, I get it, but I actually enjoyed, and I didn't enjoy a lot of books in high school, I didn't. But I enjoyed The Great Gatsby. There was something about it. I don't know what it is about the Gatsby character, but the way it was written is such an interesting character. The myth, right? The mystique, the mystery, everything about that character fascinated me. And I felt Redford encapsulated that. And that's the best thing about the movie for me, was Redford's rendition of Gatsby. Nailed it. I think he did. I think he did a much better job than DiCaprio did. And that is it because I grew up watching it. It might. He's implanted in my mind as Gatsby. Period. And I thought he did a wonderful job. He looked the part. He acted the part. A note about this is that Mia Farrow felt that the chemistry was damaged because Redford was too involved in the Watergate scandal that was going on at the time. Mia Farrow said that during the production, in between scenes, Redford, gone. In his trailer, watching the news, reading the newspaper, staying up to date. He was fascinated with politics. And this Watergate thing grabbed him. And it was more important for Bob to be learning about Watergate than acting in The Great Gatsby. That's my opinion, and we're going to move on. The next movie of note I just want to talk about is 3 Days of Candor. Condor? Did I say Candor? Condor. 3 Days of Condor. Another Pollock film. I love this movie. I like the feel of it, the look of it, everything. I've seen it several times. And I just wanted to also point out again, in the very beginning of this film, I'm just intrigued by Redford's movements as an actor, in his character. They're fluid. They're natural poetry. That's the best way I can describe it. Natural poetry. Just simply walking around the office, talking to people as he comes into the office in his job. And that's a tribute to Pollock too, the feel. Redford and Pollock, they got it. And I simply watch that movie for the beginning scene. You could stop watching after that and think, what is it? It's just life happening. It's real. It's like I said, fluid. It's natural poetry by Redford and Pollock. And we'll move on to the most important film Redford will ever do, All the President's Men. And he and Dustin Hoffman, talk about that duo. Woo! Just brilliant. The whole movie is brilliant. That's my opinion. I think it's a masterpiece. Bob loved doing this movie. It took a while to get going. He was fascinated with Watergate. And he felt doing a movie about what went on behind the scenes the story that the audience doesn't know. And the most central thing that interested him the most about this was the two main characters. You have Woodward and Bernstein, two completely different people. Okay, one was a liberal, the other a Democrat. Okay, one was a good writer, the other not so much. They didn't like each other. Both ends of the spectrum, but they had to work together. That in itself was the most intriguing thing to Redford. Plus, he gets to act with Hoffman. And I want to note, before we move on, Dustin Hoffman created his career, not created, but got going in the right direction in his career doing The Graduate. Robert Redford passed on that film. And they end up working together in this movie. I want to note, I don't want to get too much into this movie. We're running out of time. But I want to note, you get to see on display in this film how wonderful of a listener, and I want to point this out again, how wonderful of a listener Redford is, and how much he's on the phone in this movie. A lot of picking up the phone, dialing, and listening the old school way. When you had to actually pick up that phone with the cord on it and do the dialing, and the rotary dial. Whoa! He's on the phone a lot, and he has to listen a lot. He's the best. Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode noting a few of his later films, but most importantly, a few films he directed that have to be lightly brushed upon. Of course, 1981, Ordinary People. This is a film about family going through it. And he did. Timothy Hutton is the main character. Well done. Donald Sutherland, of course. But the most impressive performance was by Mary Tyler Moore. Wow, was she amazing. The performance Redford got out of her, wow. You talk about one of the greatest performances by an actress on film is in Ordinary People. It was a great film. Wonderfully done. The first time Redford directs, and he hits it out of the park, folks. He wins the Oscar. Now, Bob says Academy Awards doesn't really favor it, okay? But you could tell it meant something to him. He may not admit it. It did. It should. He worked his ass off to get where he was and directing for the first time. He didn't really know the terminology about the camera and scenes, and he would try to tell the cameraman what he wanted, his vision. And the cameraman would say, well, I'm not quite getting what you want. His terminology was off about the camera lenses, long shots, all that stuff. So, Bob's getting frustrated because he wants to relay to the cameraman what he wants. So he felt the best course of action was to draw it. It's called storyboarding. And that's what Redford did in Ordinary People as a director. He drew every scene out. And when he brought it to the cameraman, they'd go, oh, gotcha. No problem. So you have this side, the artistic side of Redford presenting itself as a director in film. His talent as an artist, putting the pencil to paper and drawing a picture that can relay his message to the cameraman was vital. He was so talented. He was able to do that. And he loved directing. It was hard, yes. But he loved it because he had control. Another film I liked of Redford was Brubaker, where he is a prison warden. He goes undercover as a prisoner for a few months, which I see another story that fascinates me. He picked good movies, and a movie like that fascinated me. Going undercover in a prison as the warden, to see what's going on for real. Of course, The Natural, excellent movie. Baseball movie. Redford looks the part. He looks like a baseball player. And he was. He was a pitcher in high school. He did a movie with Meryl Streep called Out of Africa, another Sidney Pollack film. It's a long one. It's good. Another one of my favorites, Under the Radar, Legal Eagle with Deborah Winger. He works with Dan Aykroyd, Sidney Poitier, River Phoenix in Sneakers, which is another good one. And then, of course, A River Runs Through It, starring Brad Pitt. He directed this one, and I love it. I watch it often. Directing is amazing. Story, it makes sense. It's just a nice film. It's beautiful. Note is that Brad Pitt beat out River Phoenix for the role, which I find interesting because at the time, I think Phoenix had more talent. Maybe not talent. I take that back. River Phoenix was on the path, and Brad Pitt was sort of unknown at that time. So I asked myself this question, why? Why didn't Redford cast Phoenix? Because he had worked with them in Sneakers. What happened there? And the only thing I can think of was that River was going down a not so good path at that time, and Redford didn't trust him. I think that's why River didn't get that role. Redford knew River was going through some shit at that time. And Dan Aykroyd, who was also in Sneakers, mentions that. In taking Phoenix aside, and this is Aykroyd, and sort of, giving him advice. You're going down the wrong path. So Brad Pitt gets the role. And I thought Brad Pitt did a wonderful job. If you listen to my Pitt episode that I did, I mentioned that. Wonderful acting by Brad Pitt in this movie. And of course, the other film that he directed, Quiz Show, another phenomenal film. Interesting pieces that Redford placed in front of us to look at, enjoy, and the characters are always fascinating, and he always seemed to pick the right actors. Look at the cast of Quiz Show. I mean, wow. John Turturro, Ralph Fiennes. I mean, it goes on and on. You look at the cast of Quiz Show. Impressive. And, I don't know. He got a great performance out of Rob Morrow, for Christ's sake. Think about that. So talented. Robert Redford. I mean, even Martin Scorsese has a role in Quiz Show. Why not? It was nominated for Best Picture and Director. Did a movie in 1998 called The Horse Whisperer he directed. And I was at the Academy at that time in 98. And I would hear whispers about The Horse Whisperer. Funny. I think they were doing promotional stuff at that time. And Redford being so popular at the Academy, they were talking about The Horse Whisperer. So I remember that. And before we end it, got to mention All Is Lost, a film he did. And no dialogue. He's on a boat going through it, surviving on this boat. And you're just watching somebody trying to survive, staying calm. And I loved it. It stuck with me. He's such a wonderful actor. Robert Redford was a wonderful man. Modest. He wanted to keep it right here. And although very political, asked by political hopefuls to stand up with them, to promote them. At first, Bob was flattered, feeling, wow, being a part of something like that, I could see that. But slowly realized through that whole experience that he was being used and never did it after that. Although political, he said he would never run for office. Why? He said, well, it would be a disaster. He was truthful, so intelligent, so talented, and we will miss him for sure. What a legend. A true legend. He was a rare artist. And like I said, they don't make them like that anymore. They're slipping away from us, folks. Watch Robert Redford. Brilliant. 89 years old. It's great. It was an honor doing a show about Mr. Redford. God, I wish I would have met him. Never did. That would have been, wow. As larger than life as he seemed to me, I hear that he's just a normal guy. Just a good man. Great values. Wow. What a talent. And a truly great man. So, I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. Thank you for listening to this episode of the show, The Actors Room. Support it. Go on the website. I have to do some updating. I'm trying to get back into doing Instagram posts, and I posted a few things on Instagram about Mr. Redford, more than I did for anybody else promoting the show. He meant a lot to me. I loved his work. He looked the part, didn't he? Just, to be that talented and that good looking, like he was Brad Pitt before Brad Pitt. Tom Cruise before Tom Cruise. He just had it all. He didn't even know it, really. Wow. Fascinating. I hope all is well with everybody out there. Enjoy art. I watched Superman, the newest Superman. It's available on HBO Max. What a piece of garbage they are giving us now. I finished it. Most of it was filmed in Cleveland. That's why I watched it. What a hot pile of shit. Of course, this is my opinion. I mean, you're talking to somebody, you're listening to somebody that really appreciates independent film and things like that. But what are we dishing out now? I do want to see DiCaprio's new movie, Paul Thomas Anderson, Sean Penn. That looks good. I want to see that. And they also brought a Stephen King book to film that I've been waiting for like 20 years called The Long Walk. That's been in talks for a long time. And that's just came out. Philip Seymour Hoffman's son is in that. So there are a few things I would go to the theater to see, but not many. And this comes around just every now and then. Something coming out that I'm like, hey, I want to go see that. It's very rare. For example, the last movie I saw in the theater was Clue, because they brought it back, 40th anniversary? 40th anniversary. Came out in 85. So yeah, 40 years. We went and saw that. We saw it. We love Clue. The whole family loves it. It was a treat to go watch that awesome, funny film done in 1985 on the big screen. It's great. It's that time of year, folks. Put in a horror movie. Yeah. It's time, right? Put up those Halloween stuff. I got spiders making webs outside. I don't need to buy anything. They're doing a great job. I'm letting them just do their thing. Create your homes. Make it look very Halloween-like. I hope all is well. God bless. Thank you for listening to The Actors Room. It was a long episode, but I enjoyed it. Talking about Mr. Robert Redford. A true legend, very talented. Thanks for listening. God bless. Have a good one.